I have 6:30 on my end, so I think that we can go ahead and get started. Do we have all of our panelists here, or should we give it another couple of minutes, do you think?
Think I see. Hi, Steve. I see Steve. Oh, and there's Emilio. Okay, and then there's Matt. Okay.
We're
Oh, and
missing
then
Jamil.
Jamil.
Is Jamil here?
Okay, maybe we can follow up with him. We'll go ahead and get started and we'll come back to his introduction, and hopefully he'll be here by the time we get to that.
Do you want to send him a nudge, Michaela?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry, I had some poor planning going on today.
All good. All right, so I think we are ready to get started. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to come and chat with us and just share your thoughts and questions and opinions about some environmental stuff going on in the city of Gaithersburg. So tonight we are going to do a brief opening, and then I will walk us through introductions for the City of Gaithersburg's Environmental Services Division and all of our panelists here. I'll also introduce myself, but just as a teaser, I am with the Center for Watershed Protection, who's the contractor that is leading the plan development for the city's updated watershed plans. So we will be getting into a number of environmental issues tonight, but all of them affect our watersheds. So I am very excited to get to be a part of this tonight and to have you all here. Nancy, do you want to say anything before we kind of get started? Do you want to introduce the
Sure.
team?
Yeah, as we've been meeting for many months now, and I see a couple new names. I'm always excited about that. And I want to really thank everybody who's attending, from residents and stakeholders within the watershed, as well as our panelists who've taken time out of their evening to be present and be, grilled with these heavy duty environmental questions. And we hope it's really beneficial for everybody involved. So thank you for being a part of our watershed and for participating in our watershed planning. And I'd like to introduce the environmental services team, my colleagues, Megan Kelsel and Michaela Vincent Jones, and they're welcome to say hello.
And I'll have a moment in a couple of minutes for full introductions where you can share more about what you do for the city and some of your background there. So that was great. Thank you. So after we go through introductions there, we will move on to an open panel discussion, and I'll be sharing some information about the logistics of how that will be run. And then we'll wrap up around 8:30 tonight, or 8, excuse me. We're starting at 6:30 in about an hour and a half. All right, so a couple of opening items before we get started. I'll keep this very brief. Some information about tonight's meeting. So first, this is a very conversational meeting. We want it to be open. We want you to feel comfortable sharing and listening to each other's ideas. The chat box will be open throughout the entire meeting. Please use it. It is a great way to communicate with us, and you're also welcome to speak verbally. The goal here is for you to be able to ask your questions, share your priorities, express any concerns, and for all of us to kind of put our heads together as a team and discuss ideas and potential solutions, and then the city's team can work on those moving forward and evaluate feasibility and keep you all posted on progress through the city's website and the ultimate watershed plans. So some logistics for tonight's meeting. We have received, I said 30 plus questions, but I think it's even higher now since the last time I updated these slides. We had a survey distributed to all residents in the watersheds ahead of time so that folks who couldn't make it here tonight still had an opportunity to submit and ask their questions. We're going to alternate a little bit between the pre-submitted questions and any live questions that come through in the chat box. And my colleague Katie and the city's team is going to help me keep an eye on the chat box so that we can make sure all those questions get answered. This meeting is going to be recorded, and the link to the recording will be available on the city's website. We are also going to develop written responses to all of the questions that are asked here tonight. So whether you ask your question verbally, whether you submitted it in the survey beforehand, or whether you typed it in the chat box during tonight's meeting, the city's team will review the response that was submitted live tonight, and it will validate it, vet it with other members of the team, and published final written responses on the city's website after tonight's meeting. Some of the outcomes from this project. So as we know, it is part of the watershed planning process, and we are going to be incorporating your stakeholder input in a direct way to these watershed plans. So watershed plans are more than just kind of nebulous characterization documents, but they are tangible action plans with specific implementation strategies and timelines for solutions. So your environmental concerns here are going to reflect in the priorities in those plans, which are going to be finalized toward the end of next year. Another outcome from this meeting is that all of the personnel within the city and within the city's partnered programs who are responsible for implementing environmental activities within the city's watersheds are going to receive your feedback. So all of our notes tonight on your opinions, preferences, and concerns are going to be shared within the divisions of the city of Gaithersburg and its partners to make sure that your preferences and opinions get received and documented in a way that's meaningful and that informs our strategies moving forward. A couple of quick ground rules. So first, we will all be respectful to each other. I know these are a little bit obvious, but just to kind of lay the groundwork, we're going to be respectful to each other. Please be patient with the panel's responses. In some cases, our experts may need to discuss or confirm details with other members of their team, so we will make sure that those final details get solidified in the written responses. And we have lots of questions, many more questions than minutes in this meeting. So please be mindful of time, and we will follow up with the written responses as well. A couple of best practices. So you can raise your hand in Zoom if you feel comfortable with it, or you can send a message in the chat to ask to speak. But once we get to the open discussion, it's going to be very conversational, and we want you to participate. So feel free to chime in, and we will absolutely be happy to hear your thoughts. One thing I wanted to note is that at 7:45 p.m., if your question has not yet been answered, please type it in the chat box, and any unanswered questions in the chat box will also be answered by the city's team and shared in the written responses after tonight's meeting. All right, with that, I think we might have some opening Zoom polls. Katie, are those available?
Yes, I can get those up.
All right, so some quick questions if you have attended any of our previous watershed planning meetings, or if this is your first time joining. And then the next question will be familiar to some of you who have been to a bunch of these watershed planning meetings, but if you haven't, these are some ideas of ways that you as stakeholders can participate in our project to update the city's watershed plans. So you could participate in volunteer stream assessments, collaborate on community events, share locations of concerns and environmental quality indicators in the city, and also share input on potential solutions. So feel free to share your responses to those poll questions, and in a moment we'll close the poll and see what everyone said. And apologies for my dog barking in the background as well. He's very vocal.
Got a couple questions of his own.
Yeah, there you go. I said it was conversational, didn't I?
All right, we're almost at well, we're just over a quorum here.
He's got
Perfect.
he's got strong opinions.
I know, he came to the right place.
Yeah.
Good deal. Okay, well, we can go ahead and close the poll and look at the results. Katie, perfect. So this is great. We have about 60% of folks have been to some of our previous meetings. We've had, I think, 8 previous meetings, or between 6 and 8 previous meetings are kind of a blur to me at this point. But they started in March of this year. And then lots of new folks as well. I'm really grateful to see everybody here. Thanks for joining. We also have a good diversity of interest in how folks are interested in contributing to the city's watershed plans. So some folks interested in volunteer stream assessments, which there will be more of that happening in 2026, so keep an eye out for that. Community events, and then lots of interest on potential solutions to problem areas. So that's perfect. We are in the right place. We can go ahead and close that and keep going. So now we are going to pivot into introductions. So I'm going to start by finally introducing myself a little bit more. So as I said, I am Jordan Fox. I am with the Center for Watershed Protection, and I am a geographic data analyst and researcher for the Center for Watershed Protection. I've been with this nonprofit organization for almost 10 years, and the organization provides science and engineering services across the United States and through its territories and islands as well. For this project with the City of Gaithersburg, CWP has been contracted to update the city's watershed plans to include the entire watershed areas extending into Montgomery County. And so I am very excited to be able to manage this project and also contribute substantially to writing those watershed plans. I'll turn it over to my colleague Katie to introduce herself.
Hello, y'all. I just started with the center. Oh, it's actually just under a year now. But I'm the training coordinator. No, it feels like 2 years, but it's been wonderful working with everyone. And I specialize in outreach and engagement. So I've been helping Jordan with the public stakeholder meetings here with City of Gaithersburg. So excited to see so many folks on the call tonight. Welcome.
Thanks, Katie. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Nancy and the City of Gaithersburg's Environmental Services Division team to say a little bit more about your specific role within the city.
Thank you. And I'm Nancy Shum. I'm the Environmental Services Division Chief for the City of Gaithersburg. I run the Stormwater Management Program, the Environmental Services and Sustainability Program, and the Forest Conservation Program for the city. And I'm here tonight with my wonderful team members and colleagues. Megan, you can introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm a project engineer with the city, so I help manage the watershed studies, and I've got a couple other projects going on for our dams. And I helped with our Rainscapes program, which we talked about, was that last month? Now CBT, Chesapeake Bay Trust, they manage that, but we still coordinate a lot for that. That's one of my favorite programs with the city. And I do landscape reviews. That keeps me busy too. And with that, I will turn it over to Michaela.
Hi, my name is Michaela Jones-Vincent. I'm the watershed planning intern, so I help out with a whole bunch of things watershed planning related, including coordinating these meetings. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all the wonderful questions. I was blown away by just how many thoughtful questions we got. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first panelist, Matt. Matt is with the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. And Matt, if you'd like to introduce yourself, you can go ahead.
Great. Thanks for inviting me tonight. Excited to be here. I'm a natural resources manager at Montgomery County Parks, specializing in freshwater biological monitoring, aquatic resources management, environmental restoration, conservation, development review, stormwater management, you name it. It's got water in it, freshwater anyways, then that's me. My background is in entomology and aquatic ecology. Been doing this professionally for over 20 years. The last 13 of that being here with the Parks Department in Montgomery County. So definitely excited to be partners with the City of Gaithersburg on this as our watersheds do not see boundaries and just flow freely between these borders, and excited to see what comes out of this effort, and excited to hear what everybody has interest in tonight. So just to give a little perspective, our park system outside of the city of Gaithersburg is comprised of 421 parks. That's spread out over 37,000 acres of land and home to over 600 miles of streams. About 70% of this land is in conservation, so that's natural resource-based land. And, that encompasses, lakes, lots of ponds and stormwater management facilities, and roughly 3,000 acres of wetlands. So looking forward to hearing your questions tonight.
Thanks so much for joining us, Matt, and for all your work on the county's parks.
Of course.
All right. I don't know, has Jamil been able to join us on the call tonight? Yes? Oh, fantastic. Jamil, thanks so much for joining us. Jamil is the Vice President for the City Council, and I'd love if you'd like to unmute and introduce yourself, please go ahead.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Like I said, Jamil Hernandez, proud to serve in Gaithersburg City Council. And I'm also the council liaison to the city's Environmental Affairs Committee. So I'm looking forward to the questions tonight, rolling up the sleeves and hearing from everybody.
Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. All right, next up, I'd like to turn it over to Steve and Emilio from the City of Gaithersburg's Neighborhood Services Division. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Marquina. I'm the co-compliance manager with the Neighborhood Services Division. We're under the Department of Community Housing and Neighborhood Services. My role with the city is overseeing the enforcement operations of the code enforcement team. As it pertains to many areas of the codes, being property maintenance, public nuisances, rental housing inspections, landlord-tenant relations, vendors, and some licensing, as well as some illicit discharge complaints and illegal dumping complaints. And I've been with the city for 21 years. With that, I'll turn it over to Amelia.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emilio Cabello. I'm a Code Administration Officer with the Neighborhood Services Division. I've been with the city for 10 years now. And I also deal with property maintenance complaints, proactive inspections with zoning violations, illicit discharge, illicit dumping, and various other licensing and permitting cases, as well as I specialize with hoarding cases as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Steve and Emilio, for being here with us tonight.
Our pleasure.
And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Wayne Watkins with the City of Gaithersburg's Public Works Department to introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Wayne Watkins. I'm the city's park supervisor, and I'm pretty much responsible for the daily operations of the city parks, taking care of everything from the simple maintenance, picking up trash to mowing, putting in new playgrounds, work very closely with the environmental services team with projects in the parks. We probably are together once or twice a week discussing different things going on within the city. So I'm happy to be here tonight. So thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over to Marvin Martinez, also with the Public Works Department from the city. Marvin?
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marvin Martinez. I'm the supervisor for the mowing and bulk pickup team. I wear many hats around the city. A few is the mowing and maintaining of all the city right-of-way areas. So what does that mean? Mowing and maintaining all the turf grass management areas that are non-park, picking up trash, currently doing a turf program with aeration and seeding. Also operate the bulk pickup side of things, so scheduling and picking up all the bulk material within the city limits. My team is also very involved in leaf collection, which is upcoming the last full week of October through the end of the year. We also help with snow removal, and we do traffic control for all the city special event programs. I work closely with the environmental services team on a couple events. Did work at the Fix It Fair and also have a big part with the shredded event. So that's just a couple hats that we wear. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Marvin. And thanks so much, everyone, for being here. So since we have a relatively manageable sized group tonight, I thought it would be nice for folks to go around and do brief introductions of themselves, which I'll ask Katie, maybe you can help me with the facilitation between all of the attendees. But if you're not able to unmute, you're welcome to introduce yourself in the chat box as well. And you can just share your name and something about the environment in the city or around the city that matters to you. That could be a specific natural resource like a park or a stream, or a cause or issue that matters a lot to you, like winter maintenance or street sweeping or something like that. So Katie, I'll have you maybe call on the first attendee.
Yeah, or if you'd like to come off mute to introduce yourself, maybe you could raise your hand and then we can
Perfect.
lower hands as we go around in case you'd rather enter it in the chat. Anyone's feeling brave tonight.
All right, do we have to put our hands up?
No,
you can
go
go ahead,
ahead.
Anna.
Okay, so I'm Anna Wimbo. I am the Director of Leadership Development at Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. And a lot of what we do is we work with the faith community to install BMPs on their property, and just get more engaged in helping preserve our local waterways and the Chesapeake Bay watershed as a whole. So yeah, clean water really matters to me. We drink tap water and I want to keep it that way.
Thanks so much, Anna.
We also have Susie with a hand up.
I'm Susie Ward and I live in Deer Park on Gaither Street. I've lived here for in the city here at this location for 46 years. And one of my biggest concerns is Duval Park. And there's a place, part of it collects water, but also just it needs aeration and overseeding. And in the fall, like last fall, I don't know if you want to hear this right now.
Why? Let's save the details for the panel discussion, but that was a phenomenal teaser. Duval Park overseeding and aeration needs. We got it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much for coming, Susie.
You're welcome.
Hello, I'm Roger Rasnick, and I'm on the board of the Muddy Branch Alliance, and I noticed there are several other of our board members here tonight. So, our primary focus has been on the watershed itself of the Muddy Branch Creek and maintaining the greenway and trying to work in Malcolm King Park and just trying to make sure that our beautiful environment is maintained.
Very good. Thanks, Roger.
Great. Emily, why don't you go ahead next?
Okie. I am Emmeline Ringett. I am the president of the Muddy Branch Alliance right now. And since Roger already talked about that a little bit, I'll say my personal interest in the area. I've lived in Gaithersburg since 2016, and I have a lot of interest in building up wildlife refuge in the area. I moved here from a rural area, and I cannot believe how many basic bugs are missing. So working on that. Yeah, and just working on generally building up resilience for my personal worries, fire and flood. So
we've got an entomologist in the room, so I think you're not the only bug fan here.
No, it's somebody that finally wouldn't be scared of my pet bugs.
There you go.
Thanks so much, Emmeline. All right, Tony, why don't you go next?
I'm Tony Hudson, and I've lived in the city of Gaithersburg for 56 years, but in my house for 55 of those. And I think I'm interested in everything environmental, but right now I'm most concerned about trees because Gaithersburg is a tree city, or it was. And so I'm very conscious that we need our tree cover, and we don't want to be, what is it called when you don't have trees? Anyway, I can't think of the word. That's all.
Overdeveloped, urban heat island,
That's
something like
it.
that.
That's
There you
it.
go.
I don't
Yeah.
want us to be a heat island.
Yes. Very
Horrible
good.
thought for the future.
No, yeah, we're doing our best to avoid that. Thanks so much, Tony.
All right, Jeanette, why don't you go next?
Hi, everyone. I'm also with the Muddy Branch Alliance. I'm the past president. What's on my mind this week is I'm giving a presentation about what road salt does to plants. If you want to know more about that, be at the library in Burtonsville, 7:30 Thursday evening. It'll be fun.
Thanks so
Beautiful.
much, Jeanette. All right, and then Jordan, why don't you go next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan. I'm a Climate Corps intern with the Center for Watershed Protection. And an environmental issue that matters a lot to me, just in general, is pollution. I think a lot about how it affects not only the watershed, but more importantly, the health of the people that interact with those areas that are being polluted. So that's a very big part of it for me.
Thanks so much, Jordan.
Thank you. And then Suzanne.
Hi, I am active with the Homeowners Association at Washingtonian Woods. We have more than one homeowners association, but I'm involved particularly with one of them, also a second one. And our homeowners association goes up to the Muddy Branch tributary that also is part of the city park of Washingtonian Woods. And our homeowners association has also applied for and received a grant from the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and we're working on applying for another one in the future. So those are some of my interests.
Thanks, Suzanne. That's awesome.
All right, we've got one more hand raised. Patton, go ahead. It's good to see you here.
Hi, my name's Patton Hubbard. I'm also interning with the Center for Watershed. I've lived in the Gaithersburg, North Potomac area my entire life, and something I've always been concerned about is development along the Muddy Branch Trail system, just making sure there's not erosion and degradation going along in that system.
Thanks, Patton. Great. All right. So if that is all of our hands, I know we got some introductions in the chat box too. Katie, do you mind relaying some of those?
Yeah, we have Bruce here with us, Washington Grove, interested in all things sustainable. And then, in the chat, he says he's working on a meadow restoration, local food networks, clean energy, and more volunteer capacity. All wonderful, wonderful things. So thanks for joining us, Bruce. And I'll invite anyone else who wants to just add a quick note in the chat who hasn't spoken up yet. You can feel free to go ahead and do so.
Great, thanks. We can come back to that at the beginning of the panel discussion as well. All right, so a couple of reminders before I stop sharing my screen and we can go ahead and get started. We are going to alternate a little bit between our pre-submitted questions that folks submitted through our survey ahead of time, but we'll also have time for live questions tonight. So any questions you have, please type them in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and ask your questions verbally. We have assigned our pre-submitted questions to specific panelists, so I will present them to that individual, but there is absolutely open time for attendees and other panelists to chime in and join the conversation about specific questions. Again, ask your questions verbally by raising your hand or asking to speak in the chat, or ask your question directly in the chat box, and we will read them aloud to the group. This is my big reminder to make sure that we get every question answered either verbally tonight or in writing after tonight. If at 7:45 p.m. your question still has not been answered, please make sure it's been typed in the chat box, and we will make sure that it's answered after tonight's meeting if we don't get a chance to discuss it tonight. So 7:45 p.m., I'll do my best to verbally announce that timing as well as your kind of last call in our last 15 minutes to share your questions. All right, and with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and we are going to get started with our conversation. So I am going to kick us off with one of our pre-submitted questions because I think folks might have a little bit of stage fright at the beginning of meetings. And this first question is for Marvin. So what is being done to address all of the spotted lantern flies in the city?
Absolutely, more than happy to answer this question to the best of my ability. Obviously, the spotted lanternfly has been a big um, nuisance in not only Maryland but also in the entire East Coast. As of now, per the Department of Agriculture, we don't really have any residential treatment of the spotted lanternfly. Eradication of the spotted lanternfly is not something that is feasible at the moment. That's per MDE. And management of the spotted lanternfly is possible, but some things we can do to cause some relief. But right now, what MDE is currently telling us is to wait for the life cycle of the current spotted lanternfly to kind of live out its life and move on from there. We don't really know what the effects are in the future, but as of now, there's not a feasible treatment that we can do, and we can't really, spray pesticides. I'm sure everybody has heard squash them if you see them, but there's so many of them. I'm sure everybody has seen that there's not really a feasible treatment statewide that we can provide at the moment.
I did hear that bats have started acquiring a taste for them. I don't 100% know if that's true or not, but that seems like a good sign.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
for a natural predator to step up and take care of them for us, we are, excited for that. But as of now, there's not a feasible treatment that we can provide citywide or even statewide to completely eradicate the spotted lanternfly. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if anybody else has some
And
more insight to.
we're hearing that too, and that they won't harm your trees. They're just annoying. And they're really going after agricultural fields, which of course is a problem, but agricultural department is helping to address that. And it takes about a year for predators to realize they're tasty. So, and Katie can attest to the fact that there was a bigger problem in Delaware, and it took about the next cycle, there was not a problem anymore. The
Yeah.
predators figure it out. So,
I'd say about 2 years. I live in Delaware near the border of Pennsylvania, northern Delaware, and we got smashed with them when they were first introduced. And it took maybe about 2 years to really see a decline, but now I don't see them in Delaware at all. I'm actually astounded when I see them and I'm traveling through Maryland. So hang in there, guys. The predators will catch up.
It reminds me kind of the stink bug epidemic that took place, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. They were really bad for a year or two, and then now you hardly even see a stink bug just because the natural predators have kind of taken over and, like Nancy said, found out their tasty treats.
Very good. Thanks so much, everyone. All right, so my next question is for Jamil. Can you describe a little bit about the Climate Action Plan? What is it and what's its goal? What are the differences and similarities with the city's environmental element of the 2003 master plan?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. I think that the city has a lot of plans that we talk about that serve different purposes. A master plan or an environmental element of a master plan sets the conditions and kind of aspirations of where we want to be as a city for those different pieces. A climate action plan, as its name indicates with the A in action, is more specifically targeted for things the city is going to do to further its climate goals. And so it's, I would say, more concrete, specific items as opposed to a master plan, which is more, maybe the word isn't perfectly said aspirationally, but sort of here's the type of things we'd like to see get built in the city. Here's the type of uses that we favor, as opposed to we are going to bring composting to every resident, or the different things we can measure. We're going to try to reduce emissions. We're going to do better in our waste stream. cycles and what we're going to do. So those would be the two major differences that I would point to.
Thanks, Jamil. All right. Next question, and as a reminder, if anything pops into your mind, even follow-up questions to our discussion here, feel free to enter those in the chat. So here is another question more specific to a local park, and this one was for Wayne. So 6 to 8 trees were reported as lost during the tornadoes last summer in Duval Park, and this stakeholder has been concerned that none of them have been replaced yet. Do you know if there are any plans to replant trees there?
Not at this time. Duval Park, which is probably one of my favorite parks in the city, is there is a huge canopy of trees down there now. That's one of the reasons the grass is kind of thin in that area, because it's really hard to grow good turf grass in shaded areas. So I concentrated our efforts in planting trees in some of the other parks that don't have much of a canopy, such as Discovery Park. We planted 15 trees over there last fall, rather than just putting them back in Duval at this point. At some point, we will plant trees in Duval because the trees down there are getting older, but we don't have an exact plan to plant trees there. There's plenty of plans, other parks that need attention. We also did a big planting at Malcolm King 2 years ago. And this coming fall, we're going to be focusing on Victory Farm. So.
Great. Thanks for shedding some light on those planting plans. Susie, I see your hand raised.
Yes, in relation to Duval Park, I have a question about, like last year, in the fall, the leaves fell, of course, because they do. They're deciduous trees. And the leaves lay on the ground all winter. And then in the spring, they just blew them all together and took them away. Whereas I don't understand why we don't just chop them up and let them disintegrate and have the worms pull them into the ground and rejuvenate the ground, and then we wouldn't be our grass would grow better.
No, I agree with you. I would love to do that, but they're so heavy down there because of the oak trees that if we did chop them up, it would take a long time for that leaf litter to break down in an area like that. We actually haul them out to Pope Farm where they are recycled and used for compost, so they are being reused and being put back into the environment. So,
excuse me, go on.
Go ahead.
I appreciate what you're saying. I have oak trees in my yard, and I chop up my leaves, and they by spring they're gone. But obviously, you have to do whatever you think is best.
Yeah, and ultimately it will help the grass, but at the same time, when they're that thick, I think that much cover down there would not be good in that low shaded environment.
Well, okay. Thank you.
David, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I have a comment. Thank you. I have a comment about the leaves that drop from trees. Leaves that drop from trees not only rejuvenate the soil, but they're holding the eggs of the insects that lay their eggs on those leaves. And so one of the problems that we're having with the reduction in insect populations is that when things are maintained too much, we don't have a place to keep the insect population going. It's great that there are oak trees there. That's a native tree that insects lay their. I think there's some 500 insects that depend on the oak tree for some part of their life cycle. They either eat it or lay their eggs on it or something like that. So I think there should be areas where we let the leaves lay there. Invasive non-native plants like turf grass, maybe we don't maintain them in all places. We have to have places to keep our wildlife and insect populations going. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And we got a couple of survey questions that really echoed that sentiment about how perhaps over management of some of the public lands in the city could be affecting birds and insects in the city by not having enough food to eat and things like that. So I'm curious if there are any plans to reduce the use of pesticides and fertilizer over time on these public lands, or if there are any other ideas for how to increase these spaces. I have some ideas as it relates to the watershed planning project, but can open it up.
If Wayne, I think me and you can kind of take this one together. I mean, to be honest, I think that just I've been with the city just 2 years now, and am very surprised at the low input of pesticides and fertilizer management that we do. I can personally say within the city right-of-way areas, there are many acres that go untreated without any pesticide or fertilization. And the same thing comes to leaf collection. We usually do not collect any of the leaves. If anything, we may do one mower mulching and everything stays put. Um, Obviously, an accumulation of leaves is not something that we would want just because it causes some safety issues in some of our right-of-way areas with causing a slip hazard with rain um, and some other obstacles as well. So we do try to maintain super low input into our right-of-way areas, but there is many areas across the street, across the city, in the right-of-way areas, and I understand some park areas as well, they go unmaintained, and we just kind of let the leaves disintegrate or kind of work its way into the soil over time.
Yeah, with the parks, the same as far as like fertilizers and stuff. If the grass is growing good, there's no reason to fertilize it. So we just don't go out and blanket spread fertilizer over the city. There's probably 2 or 3 ball fields that get really beat up, and we do apply fertilizer to those fields just to try to create healthy grass. But we don't just go out there and blanket spray any pesticides at all. If we have a problem, we would practice IPM. We'll go out, and if it's something that is going to be bad or detriment to the overall stand of grass, then we'll do something about it. But like Marvin said, there's very little inputs going in as far as pesticides and fertilizers on the city property.
One thing I would add to, thanks Wayne and Marvin, is that as part of the watershed planning project, we're doing field work to identify stormwater retrofit opportunities on city-owned land and county-owned land throughout the watersheds. And so some of those opportunities could be conservation landscaping areas where we revegetate turf grass areas that are unused with native plants. So we're going to be identifying real tangible opportunities for those as part of this project. And we'll have the link to our little survey at the end of this meeting as well, where you can send us those locations if you have any priority locations that you want us to look at a little closer. So some more conservation gardens coming in probably 2027 once the plans are finished in 2026 and progress. Very good. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Steve now. We have a question about how codes are enforced and what's the punishment for violators.
Actually, Jordan, I'll be taking over for the questions for neighborhood services.
Great, thanks, Emilio.
As far as code violations, if you need to report any code violations, you can feel free and email us at neighborhoods@gaithersburgmd.gov, or you can call us at 301-258-6340. And as far as the violations, pretty much the enforcement varies depending on the severity or what the violation is. For example, if a residential property or a commercial property has tall grass and weeds, they would be issued a notice giving them the opportunity to cut the grass within a certain time frame. If someone does not comply with that notice, then we would escalate enforcement to issue municipal citations. And then there's other more severe type of violations like illicit dumping. So say someone throws a bucket of paint water down the sewer drain or something like that. That is a more severe one where we would immediately escalate it to municipal citations and get them to fix whatever needs to be fixed, clean it out. And then normally our enforcement process escalates even more depending on how reactive or unresponsive the person that's put on notice, how they react.
That makes sense that there's lots of different pathways that you can go based on the type of violation and how bad it is and how eager you are to respond to it and fix it. So thanks for that answer, Emilio.
Sure, no problem.
All right, now I have a question that was directed to Matt, but certainly open to the whole team, but I'd love to hear from you, Matt, on this one. Can you share any thoughts on the overall changes in stream quality for the city's subwatershed? So that's Muddy Branch and the lower Great Seneca and middle Great Seneca over the last few decades. And this is great for those stakeholders who have been in their homes in the city for 40, 50 years as well, is just what have you seen over time in stream quality, whether that's geomorphology or biology? So Matt, maybe you could kick us off there.
I can sort of speak to what we've been doing in the watersheds outside of the city limits. But like I said earlier, we're all sort of connected, and a lot of the watersheds in the city are draining down into the Montgomery County Parks system. So our biological monitoring program is the primary way that we are monitoring streams. This is a it's a Maryland Biological Stream Survey is the name of the protocol, and it's administered by Maryland DNR using this methodology by catching sort of the macroinvertebrates in the streams in the spring, and then going back to these same sites and catching fish in the summer. We're able to put together indexes of biological integrity, which sort of give us a snapshot of the overall health of these stream systems within these sort of 75-meter reaches. And over time, we can continue to go back to these locations and sort of track how these systems are doing over time. So using this methodology, we can sort of compare what we see in these streams from the biological assemblage to what is being found in reference reaches in the Piedmont region that are sort of unimpacted by development and sort of human activity. So through this work, we see that the most developed parts of the county have the streams that are the most impaired and the ones that are struggling the most. The index of biological integrity that we generate through our monitoring sort of falls into three categories. We have poor, fair, good, and then excellent for the healthiest streams. Certainly the headwaters that are within the most developed parts of the city are struggling and have been struggling for a long time. There a lot of the land was developed prior to modern stormwater management regulations. So while there is some stormwater treatment in the city, more would be needed to sort of help the watersheds in that area. But I think that applies to both. We're sort of looking at some of the watersheds within the city and the area. That's sort of the Middle Great Seneca Whetstone Run watershed, Middle Great Seneca Cabin Branch, Lower Great Seneca, the Long Drop Branch, and sort of the upper portions of Muddy Branch. So again, it's sort of indicative of what we see across the county in these more developed areas where we have over 30% impervious cover. That being said, I would say that looking at the monitoring that we've been doing over the years in the main stems of Middle Great Seneca, Lower Great Seneca, and Muddy Branch, sort of downstream of Darnestown Road, we see a lot of resilience in those parts of the watershed, and we see good, sort of again poor, fair, and then good. sort of the third category there, based on the assemblages of fish and bugs that we find. So I do think obviously the more stream buffer that we maintain and floodplain access that we can provide and coolness and shading and infiltration of that water as it runs off the landscape, the better off we are. And I think, that is sort of explained in what we're seeing and what we're seeing in the sort of parkland and undeveloped portions of the watersheds that are sort of falling into that good category.
Thanks so
It's a
much.
complicated answer, and hopefully these watershed assessments will shed a lot of more detailed light into that. We could talk about this for a very, very long time. That's a high level overview. So hopefully that touches on some of it for folks. But again, it's a complicated story, and sub watersheds don't even do a lot of justice to what the types of data that we're collecting and seeing. So there's a lot to tease out from this, and I think hopefully some of that will be teased out of the data that is being looked at for these assessments.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I think that the impervious cover model, just that the more impervious cover there is in a watershed, typically the more impairment you see in that stream is a good kind of fallback theory for if you're wondering how a stream is doing. And we've seen that as development has grown in a lot of the city's watersheds. One thing I thought was interesting that I'd like to share is that Montgomery County did countywide elevation differencing, DEM differencing around their stream corridors, and we were able to get that data to work with for our watershed plan. So that shows areas that have lost sediment or gained areas of deposition as well. So that's going to help us that helped us with our field assessments for the streams a couple of months ago, and that's going to help with our prioritization for the plans too. So lots of work around stream erosion in both the county and city areas, that's for sure. All right. Next question is about native plants and invasive species, kind of lumped a little bit together. And this is kind of just open to the group. So I'm curious, anyone who feels like they want to respond, please feel free. Are there any incentives to plant native species for builders or developers? And how can we encourage them more to embrace these native species? Is there a way to get local nurseries to advertise native plants or native planting programs like Rainscapes?
I can answer from the commercial side. I review most or all the landscape plans that come through the city for larger apartment complexes, or apartment complexes, gas stations, that kind of thing. And I've been trying to, just if they try to plant something invasive, I ask them to do something else. There's some that I'm not always quite sure, like, is it regulated in Maryland? Can I enforce that? Is a little tricky sometimes. It depends on how much pushback they give me with, do they really, really want to plant that one? If it's not regulated, I don't. I might let it slide depending on how much it is, or if it's spreading through rhizomes and it's like in a pot, then I'm like, okay, that's probably pretty safe, versus is it something that's going to spread through seed? I do try to look at all those things, but it is sometimes overwhelming to look at all the plants. So hopefully I don't let any slide through, but it's a learning curve. There's a lot I had no idea how many plants there are. But I don't know, I think hopefully our new Rainscapes amounts will also encourage like churches and that kind of level of organization to plant more native. But
Thanks, Megan. And that kind of ties into my next question, which was one for Jamil originally. Does the city have any plans to develop an invasive species management program or something that would give these landscape reviews some more like regulatory teeth, maybe?
Sure. I mean, from the policy side on the council, I can speak to I mean, I think we've recently changed some policies where city grants no longer will fund any projects with invasive species. So the city operates like the Felton grant that HOAs apply for and other different kind of grants. So that's been a recent policy. I think climate action plan is a good place for this. On the operational kind of staff level piece of it, I'll defer to Nancy and team. But I think, yeah, maintaining native species and encouraging more native species planting are part of what we're all about.
Yes, and we encourage that on the Chesapeake Bay grant that we award as well. So if you live in the city of Gaithersburg and you receive an award from the Chesapeake Bay Trust, it has been funded by the city of Gaithersburg. So we absolutely review planting plans, and we, again, with the Fred Felton grant, and this was the board's initiative that we absolutely supported, was to not fund invasive species. So I do cross-check all the plants and make alternative recommendations as well, because a lot of times people just don't know.
Susie, I see your hand up.
So I'm wondering, Nancy or whoever, I have a neighbor, well, actually I have two neighbors that have pretty large trees of heaven in their yards, and I realize that the city can't just go tell them to take them down. But I'm wondering if there could be an incentive that the city could offer for them to take them down, because we know that they're the preferred host for the spotted lanternfly.
Yes, unfortunately, we don't go on to private property and tell people they have the wrong things. That's not really good politics, as much as we may feel that way. So we're working on a tree campaign to encourage native species, to educate people on planting practices. We did receive a grant through the state of Maryland to plant 536 trees in 3 different parks to increase our canopy throughout the city. And we do work on both the right of ways and in our parks to, again, unfortunately, we can't go in and just manage all the invasive species. That's very, very expensive. And but that doesn't mean that when damage happens to them, we don't try to get them out of there as fast as possible. And we are actually working to replace all the Bradford pears that are in the right of ways with better species, because but it's a process. Again, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and and we do want to be fiduciary, have fiduciary responsibility. So
Thanks, Nancy. And yeah, I think Susie, that's a good idea. I wonder if we could pass that along to CBT as something they might consider in the future, because Rainscapes right now is just installing like stormwater practices on residential properties, because the city can't really do anything about privately owned property, right? But if CBT could offer even $50 or $25 to remove an invasive bush, and you take a picture before and after of it being removed. I know Howard County or certain neighborhoods of Howard County have done that before. So that could be an interesting avenue to pursue as like an incentive for private property owners.
I mean, I'm thinking some people probably don't even realize what they have and how invasive it is.
I found out that a shrub that I had poisonous berries to birds, where like if a bird ate enough of it, it was a nandina bush, a heavenly bamboo. And I was like, what the heck? And so I immediately was out there cutting off all the berries from it. But a lot of people just don't know. So education and outreach materials are certainly a starting point.
Yeah, I had 3 nandinas, and when I found out they were invasive, I tore them all out and planted native bushes.
I almost lost my ability to walk for like a week after fighting with that bush. That thing was really in there. It was rough. Anyway, Emmeline, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering what list you were comparing for the invasives. I would assume it's the Maryland Invasive Species Council, and possibly also the Plant Invaders of the Mid-Atlantic. But
Yeah, it is the Maryland DNR invasive species list.
okay. And then my other thing was going to be what I had said in chat, that I would love to see assistance. My neighbor has a tree of heaven they've been fighting with for a year and a half. And I'm like, wow, it would be really great if there were some help, because they obviously want to get rid of it. They just don't
Yeah.
necessarily have the resources.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
ideas.
I think we could add that to the rainscapes, because
Yeah.
not having invasive, like we could just pair it with tree canopy unofficially. Like, you know, we could say this amount for an invasive tree removed, and then you can also replant a tree for that,
Right.
you know, 100
It's just
100 or 150.
tree of heaven is so insidious, and it becomes your neighbor's problem really fast when it starts sending up suckers. So it's not only difficult to remove, it's difficult to remove quickly or consistently. So yeah, support with that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think you have to like take a chainsaw and cut the bark and then apply a pesticide, unfortunately. But in like a place that I visit frequently did it, and they like, I see dead standing trees now. Like, oh, okay.
And even if it's city published guidance, like an
Yeah.
infographic on your website of
Mhm.
resources or things like that, I think that there's some things that we could
Right.
do to give
Yeah.
people the knowledge for that. So that's a great idea.
Mhm.
Oh, so I'm kind of on a roll with all these lawn questions, but I'm going to pivot a little bit. I think this one is for both Steve and Emilio. So, are there any specific lawn care ordinances for residential lawns? Because someone's worried or someone's concerned about whether they can do a clover lawn or what folks' thoughts are about clover versus traditional lawns. And so they're wondering if there's any ordinances that prevent them from planting clover in their lawn.
Currently, we have an ordinance for tall grass and weeds, so we want to make sure that no lawn is over 10 inches in height, which includes uncultivated weeds. As far as having a clover lawn, if they're actually cultivating it, they're actually planting it themselves, it's not against the city ordinance. If Steve, correct me if I'm wrong on that part.
No, you're right, but we just don't regulate it. So we've seen many
Yeah.
lawns that are English ivy as opposed to grass blades. So like Emilio said, as long as it's not in violation of city code, it doesn't exceed 10 inches in height, then we don't regulate it. It'll be okay.
That makes sense. So shorter native vegetation for yards is a thought. And I have one related question, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, David. So give me just a second. Someone asked, and this is related to code violations for grass lawns. If there are like reports for tall grass over 10 inches, then generally inspections come by and tell folks to cut that grass. But then someone saying that if they report very loud mowing happening, that's difficult to enforce because the inspections don't always happen at the same time as the mowing incidents. So, do you have any ideas of how to kind of even have those conversations between neighbors, or any thoughts about how to catch mowing violations or for noise in a little bit more of a equitable way, I guess?
Yeah, so currently the city of Gettysburg does not have a noise ordinance for lawn mowing during the daytime. The city's noise ordinance is in effect for evening time. So any labor-saving devices, uh, loud vehicles, all that kind of stuff, loud music, that stuff doesn't start in effect until 9 p.m. Until 7 a.m. on the weekdays, and 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. On the weekends and federal holidays. Unfortunately, it's not like Montgomery County DEP where they enforce by decibels. We enforce by time.
Thanks, that makes sense. David, do you want to go ahead? Your hands up.
Yes, I just wanted to add a corollary to the discussion about lawns and the height that a lawn may be. There are exceptions made for people planting pollinator gardens or rain gardens. I received a rain garden grant for my yard, so my plants in my yard are not turf grass. They are native plants, and they range anywhere from 6 inches to 2, 3 feet. So that is part of the goal of the Rainscapes program, is to encourage those taller native plants in the yard. My yard doesn't require any irrigation or fertilizer or anything like that, because native plants typically have deep roots and don't require those support.
That's wonderful. Thank you, David. Yeah, that's exactly right, is to install a designated conservation landscaping area or a little pollinator garden on your yard is a way to not have to trim your grass because it's not grass. Suzanne, you want to go ahead?
Yes, I would like to turn it a little bit away from our city departments to the Muddy Branch Alliance, if you will. Please indulge me. In my neighborhood, we are trying to arrange a stream cleanup in Washingtonian Woods Pond. I have both emailed and called the Muddy Branch Alliance in the last week, but I didn't get an answer. So I'm hoping that we have real people here. The situation is, I was put in touch with Gita Leckram of the city for getting the equipment we need. That's wonderful. I have people who live in the neighborhood who would like to volunteer their time. That's good. The missing piece tonight is from the Muddy Branch Alliance. If somebody who's here either does or knows of somebody, we need their experience and knowledge in how to do. It's, in our case, see, it's a pond, but it's a wide spot of the stream. And there's gotten to be some trash there, most notably a traffic orange cone that we would like to take out of the pond. There's other things that are, papers and plastics that are not quite so obvious. But anyway, we will, if one of you Muddy Branch Alliance people can, refer me to someone or tell me right now, we're just trying to get a date and a time that works to have knowledge and expertise of stream cleanup. And like I said, I think I can help put together the other parts, maybe on a weekend. So that's the end of my taking up time, if one of you would like to answer.
I can say really fast that I can email you about that. I am sorry, I have not seen an email come through, but I'll touch base with you after this if that's okay, and connect you with our coordinator for the cleanups.
Oh, okay, that's good. You probably, well, I don't know if you have access to the email request, which I already put in, and I also made a phone call and left my phone number. And so if you can go back into those records, you'll have both my email and my phone. Thank you so much, Emily.
No problem.
And I would just say, this is like exactly what we want to be happening, both the conversations and these kinds of events. So thanks, Suzanne, for taking the initiative to organize this kind of a thing, and for working with the city and the Muddy Branch Alliance, and glad to be able to have a space for these kinds of conversations to actually do stuff in the city's watersheds,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. I have a kind of overarching question that I'm going to first send to Jamil, but I would love for all of our panelists and for folks to answer this one. What do you think is the most pressing environmental issue that the city is currently facing?
Great question. I don't think there is one. I think it's a series of things and priorities that we're trying to focus on. The city does not have, as has been mentioned earlier, a ton of green space left. So a lot of the development that is coming, like in Lake Forest or in other parts, is redeveloping of infrastructure. So how to make sure that we do that in a responsible way and applying newer environmental and stewardship practices for that. From a main one, I think like we're having this watershed discussion, stormwater management and improving the stormwater infrastructure throughout the city remains a priority. And, bringing sustainability more to folks. I always talk about, we went from 1 to 2, and now there's a third composting site being open in the city. I love for there to be a day where we have curbside composting throughout the entire city, in multifamily, single family townhouses, and all our communities. So it's that much more accessible, but also working composting with our commercial partners as well, not just the residential. So I think there's a suite of those. So just how to support the redevelopment that's ongoing within the city and ensure we're using more environmental. And the last one is within the city zone, its own buildings, its own facilities. How are we, as aging HVAC systems are being retired and replaced, where are there, or new shared use paths are coming in, where are those opportunities for improving our sustainability and sort of environmental stewardship?
Thanks, Shamil. Yeah, and that's something I'm really excited about, how the city is contributing through these watershed plans, is like we're actually having experts go out into the field and identify physical sites and develop concept designs and then prioritize them based on their ability to help the environment. So those kinds of tangible practices on sites that are owned by the city and county and have already been developed are the kind of the stepping stone to these kinds of restoration. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jordan, one more thing I would be remiss. One of my colleagues, Councilmember Rob Wu, when this is my first term on the council, he sort of drilled into me and sort of converted in terms of canopy protection and enhancement for our trees. And so we're doing a priority setting session next week. Everybody's invited and part of our priority, I think one of Rob's priorities would be like, what kind of new policy solutions are there to protect our, specimen trees and our tree canopy within the city so it can flourish and continue on as we go. So I knew he would cut my legs off if I didn't bring that up tonight, which I share as well.
Listen, I need to know the date and time of this. I'm gonna pull up. That sounds phenomenal. We're actually as part of the watershed plans, we're doing this kind of code and ordinance review for both the city and the county to see if there are any policies areas where we can strengthen environmental protections or remove barriers to environmentally friendly practices. So that could be things like when you have the center of a roundabout, can we make it easier for developers to have that be lower than the ground so water goes into it instead of just staying on the road, like little things like that. So just, I think, bringing all of the policies together and these tangible practices is really exciting, at least for me as a stormwater nerd.
Yeah, and in defense of that, not for lack of trying, we do make those recommendations, but a lot of them right now are more expensive than traditional treatments. So what we're doing at the start, or at the minimum, is putting those newfangled ideas and new practices on our own properties. So as you go forward, for instance, we're going to install a futsal court at Boar Park, and that futsal court will have innovative stormwater designs. So I'm insisting on this, and so that new practices that go in are going to have the best and really innovative ideas that are going to be examples for other developers within the city. But we can't, just like we can't enforce tree of heaven on private property, we can't make private developers we can make them follow the law, but we can't make them do things above and beyond that. And it's not for lack of trying.
Right. So having those regulatory teeth is something that we can identify those weaknesses in the codes and ordinances, and then give you all the information and tools to go to your county and city council meetings and share your thoughts and talk to your council members and support council members who fight for what you're interested in. So that's kind of how that gets propelled. But Nancy's exactly right that none of us here have direct control over any private property, whether that's a business, a commercial development, or a private residential owner, unless it's your own property, then you can do what you want generally. So it's all about collaboration and creating resources and building momentum for those entities to want to go above and beyond, or feel the pressure to go above and beyond.
Right.
Because it's not always financially the most easy thing to do,
What's with my lighting tonight? Trying
That I can't help you with. All right, another question here. So, are there any plans to swap gas-powered mowers and equipment with battery-powered mowers and equipment? So, this is a question for Marvin and the Public Works team.
Yeah, so we're actually are in the current process of switching over to a lot of electrical equipment. We've actually started already this year. We were ahead of the curve with Montgomery County's ban on gas leaf blowers. So we are currently all gas leaf blowers, all electrical leaf blowers and all electrical weed eaters and edgers at the moment. So that actually transpired back in the beginning of July, end of June, as we fully transitioned over to fully battery powered leaf blowers, weed eaters, and edgers. My team is the mowing team for all the city right of way areas. And I can speak for Wayne Watkins as well in the parks. I currently have 3 completely electric zero turn mowers. So I would say that we are about 75 to 80% fully electric for mowing right now. And I believe Parks is very close to that as well. Um, I've actually just put an order in for some more electrical equipment that should arrive within the next couple of weeks. Has been a little bit of a process getting hands-on batteries and electrical equipment with the high demand right now in Montgomery County. But it's something that we are working on fully transitioning to full electrical mowing equipment at the moment. So we are ahead of the curve. I think Montgomery County only required leaf blowers to be electric, but we decided to go ahead and take the next step and go with mowers, weed eaters, and edgers as well. So we are definitely on our way.
Fantastic. That's awesome. You should brag about that more. It's a good percentage.
Yeah, we like to stay humble. Wayne, you want to add anything to that?
No, I just agree with you. Like I said, the Parks team, we switched over another mower just like 2 months ago to electric, and uh, like Marvin said, there's some learning curves and stuff that we're going through, but for the most part, we're getting the work done, and we're figuring out what our next steps are going to be as far as being able to take care of the city with more electrical equipment. So um, some stuff's good, other stuff they still have to come a ways with it, but it'll get there.
Great. Thanks, Wayne. So this is your approximately 15-minute call. If you have an unanswered question in the back of your mind, put it in the chat box and we will make sure it's answered in the written responses. But I'm going to go ahead and keep going with some of our pre-submitted questions, and then we'll save just the last kind of 2 or 3 minutes for a few closing slides. But our next question on my list is another one for Matthew. So this person is wondering, they're wanting to get involved with watershed restoration and just be more hands-on with the watersheds outside of the city limits. Can you share what MNC PPC does and how someone could get more involved with the streams outside of the city's watersheds?
Sure. So MNC PPC is Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. We are actually a state chartered agency rather than a county agency, which, for most people, you don't see the difference, but it makes us unique, and the funding is a little bit different, and we don't compete in the same ways with some of the other county um, funding sources, like is more typical in a lot of jurisdictions. But so the commission is a bi-county commission, so we are both Montgomery County and Prince George's County, and we are both the parks and the planning functions within both those counties. But to get involved in the streams, you would work with us at the Montgomery County Parks Department. We have a volunteer cleanup coordinator that I can share contact information for, that sort of helps to coordinate cleanups in different watersheds at different times, and figuring out how much effort you can pull together and who you're drawing from, that sort of thing. So that's one avenue. We also have a weed warrior program in which we train citizens on managing weeds in our stream valley parks. And, depending on your certification, you can manage groups or just be a weed warrior that can do work at different activities. So I think those are two of the best ways to sort of get involved at a citizen level. There's other groups that are doing a lot of biological monitoring, volunteer biological monitoring on parkland. Those are some other avenues. If that's your interest, I can kind of point you in those directions. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
that's
happy
what
to sort of share those resources.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we can pull together in our written responses links to some of those resources and programs too. But
For sure.
there's lots of great opportunities for community science in the city's watersheds between like the Muddy Branch Alliance, the Seneca Creek Watershed Partners, and then county and like local government agencies as well. I also know that Isaac Walton does lots of community science and community monitoring, especially for salt with winter maintenance, which I know is a big pressing concern for a lot of folks here. So lots of opportunities. And oh, now I would be remiss if I didn't mention the city's volunteer stream assessments. There, where we have a survey form for you all to walk 140 miles of streams in the city's watersheds. So plenty of opportunities for community science. Oh, and look, Jeanette says she's talking about Isaac Walton's Salt Watch on Thursday. So you should pull up. What was the time and address for that again? You said it was the library in Burtonsville? Or are you putting it in the chat? Cool. I'm excited about all these community events that we're hearing about. All right, last couple of questions here. Last one, I think, for the public works team. So is there a protocol for cutting grass and mowing when there is excessive amounts of rain or when there's droughts? Do you change how you mow?
I can start off and then Wayne can follow. Me and Wayne work very closely together. So currently with the dry weather that we've had, we have not mown in 3 weeks. So if there's no need to mow, we're not going to mow. We currently keep our turf grass in the right-of-way areas, and obviously it's different for parks just for playability circumstances. In the right-of-way areas, we are at 3.75 inches, so closer to 4 inches. And that is solely based on trying to keep healthy turf grass. I monitor and my second in commands closely monitor the weather to determine whether we need to mow or not. So this week, yeah, we do have some longer areas in our right of way in many acres, but I just did not see a feasible reason to mow all the turf grass. So we definitely don't just go out and blanket mow or just waste labor hours on mowing if we do not need to mow or treat the areas. I'm currently, like I said, we currently are 3 weeks into not mowing. I also spoke with Kevin Edders, who was our project manager in charge of our um, contractors that mow a lot of areas as well, and they have not mown for over 3 weeks. So if there's not a need to mow our turf grasses or manage them, we will not touch them. We also do not bag any of our clippings. We just kind of release the clippings back into the soil to create organic matter and promote microbial activity in the soils. So we do not collect any clippings. We just kind of recycle everything that's in the canopy itself. So yeah, absolutely. That's a huge part of my job is to monitor not only labor hours but also promoting a healthy turf grass stand. Wayne, I'm not sure if you want to add to that as well.
Yeah, with the same with the parks. We're about 3 weeks without mowing most of the parks. Some of the sports fields, it's been about 2 weeks, but the same as Marvin says, if we don't have to mow, we're not just running the mowers out there. The same as like in the spring, it's like the grass will jump and then it might slow down from frost and whatnot. And um, the less we're out there mowing, that gives us the opportunity to use that labor elsewhere. So we actually look for opportunities not to mow if it's all possible. And we were thinking about pushing it this week, and we're just gonna pick a few areas, the worst areas this week, and actually mow a few. But like I said, it's been 3 weeks since we've had mowers out on there every day, so.
Well, and keep in mind that we don't own every road. So we don't do the mowing on every single road or right of way within the city.
If you have questions about property ownership, there's OpenGIS data. You can go look into it. I can help. No, I'm just kidding. All right. I am going to share a last couple of slides here. And if there's any last minute questions, please go ahead and put those in the chat. So we want you to keep talking to us, keep sharing your perspective. I mentioned that we're doing field work at the beginning of 2026 to identify stormwater project opportunities. Your problem sites, like that wet area in Duval Park, please make sure they're submitted sooner rather than later, but ideally by the end of next month, so that I can make sure they're integrated into our site selection process and all of that stuff. But we want to go physically look at and propose concepts for the sites that you've observed issues at. So please keep sharing your perspective. The next slide, again, this is that opportunity for community science. We have lots of streams that we want to document the conditions in. Michaela developed a really great digital survey, but there's also paper forms that you can print out and walk the streams and tell us how they're doing. So the city will be offering another training for the stream assessments in early 2026, so keep an eye out for that as well. Lastly, our next stakeholder meeting is going to be on Thursday, October 30th. So right before Halloween. I might dress up. We'll see. You have to stop me. But I'm just kidding. I'm not going to dress up. So at this meeting, we're going to do some goal and objective setting and more conversations like this about the watersheds and what you really want to see emphasized in the watershed plans. And this event is going to be a virtual meeting like this, where we have a discussion and kind of do some prioritization and brainstorming, but it's going to be followed up by a stream walk hosted by the City of Gaithersburg and the Maryland Stream Restoration Association. So in November-ish, there'll be a field component as well. So keep an eye on your email, and we have lots of events coming through the end of next year and into the beginning of next year as well. All right. And that's all I had for tonight. So we are, like I said, we're going to be preparing written responses to all of your questions. They'll be vetted across city staff teams to make sure that we have all the details accurate and ready to share, and then we'll post that on the website. But I truly cannot thank all of you enough, our panelists and attendees, for such a phenomenal conversation and hosting all of these community events and sharing what you're doing. It's just been a pleasure to get to chat with you all. So Nancy, do you want to say some final words and kind of close us out here?
Sorry, yes, let me get my camera back on. Yes, thank you to everybody for coming and for our guests, speakers. We really appreciate your availability and helping us with our watershed planning. And it's great to see all these great residents, and we love your questions. So thank you. We hope to see you at the next meeting, and bring your friends.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your night, and keep an eye out for more follow-up via email. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan, too.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.